This is IA Forward, your playbook for success as an independent insurance agent. Here to help you knock it out of the ballpark are your hosts, Shane Tatum and Tonya Lead.
Welcome to IA Forward. We are excited to have a special guest here in the studio with us today. Shane, would you like to introduce him?
Sure. We have the one and only Robby Jabbour. He was actually the first outside hire directly into a leadership role. That was very unique when we hired Robby, and he came on board and
as our chief maintenance officer.
Yeah, chief maintenance officer.
CMO.
That's right. He's responsible for our recruiting and agent development area. Our relationship started out with him actually looking at becoming one of our partner agents. And through a series of lunches and discussions and realizations of, why don't you just come to work here, right? And so here we are 5 years later. He's an integral part of what we do here in terms of growing our organization.
Another thing that's unique about Robby's position is he is one of the few men on the leadership team. So I always say y'all have the old boys network going on. And Robby does actually change the light bulbs around here too.
He does, and that was actually the most beneficial thing to me is that somebody else was changing the light bulbs and checking the filters, because I'm terrible at checking the air filters. We were calling the HVAC contractor to come and change the filters.
You are not.
Robby stepped in and immediately saved us money by changing the filters.
So I am going to post to our social media pages the fabulous picture I have of Robby changing the light bulbs with Shane standing underneath him.
That's a good pic.
Supervising to make sure that he was doing it correctly. So y'all go to our Facebook, our Instagram, our LinkedIn page, check that picture out and like it while you're there.
Masculinity in action.
Good stuff.
Yes, be sure to follow us, and you never know what you're going to see there. Robby is an active fantasy football leaguer.
Yes.
And we're at the beginning of our season. And I would love to talk a little bit about perspective. This is Shane's first year.
Rookie season.
Yep. And you're kind of our fantasy football guru.
2001.
You've been doing fantasy football almost longer than I've been a dad.
We wouldn't be able to know who won the game until the day after the games were over. We would have to go in and manually track yards, touchdowns, all that stuff.
So there was manual calculation.
Everything. I think it was at the very first baby steps of fantasy football becoming a thing. And of course, now, dude, they're making a killing off of it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in a keeper league that has been 10 friends of us, me and 9 other guys.
Okay, he just lost me. A keeper league?
Keeper league.
Yeah.
I assume that means the league doesn't change from year to year.
So you get to keep so many players from your
cool.
from your draft, right? So whatever round you draft them in, you keep them in that round the next year, right? So if you get lucky enough, like one of my friends in the league drafted Patrick Mahomes his rookie year. He didn't play. Kept him on the bench all year. He gets him in the 18th round now. So it's a huge value having him that late, when everybody else is trying to get the next best value or whatnot.
Yeah.
But
Shane has half my team from last year, I think. He got all my good players.
Well, they were terrible in week 1. I scored the lowest point total of our entire league.
So we used to have a roast for that.
Really?
So the guy that scored the least amount of points that week, everybody else got to roast him for several days.
Well, I got roasted the other night. I did. I was trying to be out there with it and just kind of put it out there. And so there was a Babylon Bee article that got posted on Facebook or somewhere that I saw, and it was a man spends 6 months preparing for fantasy league only to score 20-something points or something like that. And I scored my team in a league full of 150, 140, 150 plus points. Yeah. My team scored 90. I lost by 80. Yeah. I lost 170 to 90, and I just posted the article into the chat and just let it be. And they came. They came quick and fast.
Oh yeah.
So it was like I gave them permission because I'm in the Integra League. Tonya thought it would be fun and funny if I got involved in the Integra Fantasy League. And so I did. And so it's almost like nobody wanted to say anything about it to me. And then when I gave them permission, it was like
they're all having sidebar conversations.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, dude, can we say this?
Can we do this?
Is this okay?
Is this can he, everybody's pulling out their contract. Can he terminate my contract? For roasting him about fantasy football? Is that possible? Man, I've found some new stress in my life.
Oh yeah. You can definitely lose some sleep over your managing your fantasy team during the week.
So So getting ready for your first fantasy draft, and I did this last year because I'd never done it before. You did a mock draft.
I thought, I need to practice, right? I need to know what this looks like. So I found out just on my own looking and research that I could do a mock draft. And evidently, there's a lot of mock draft things going on out there.
Lots
right?
of opinions.
There was a mock draft that was starting every 5 minutes or something like that on ESPN. I just went in and it said your draft will start in 30 seconds. I'm like, oh, holy crap. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing. 30-second picks on the mock draft.
Yeah.
I nearly had to sleep on the couch because we are in the living room and Julie is like, hey, and I'm like, no, not now. No, I got to pick. Only got 30 seconds. So the mock draft prepared me in a not so great way, in the sense that it high pressured me. So I guess that prepared me, because our regular draft was not that crazy for me.
Right, not that stressful.
It was a 2-minute draft timeline. But that was my story about the mock draft. My first foray into fantasy league football it was extremely stressful.
Robby, as the person that works with new agents or prospective agents as they're looking at coming on board with us, to me, listening to Shane talk about his first and only mock draft and the stress of that, and things are coming at you and you're trying to make all these decisions and do these things, I think a lot of people, that's what they're going through when they're thinking about leaving where they are and starting a new agency.
Absolutely. Obviously change is difficult for people. This is a huge decision, going from security and what you've known to taking a leap of faith and opening up your own business. That's where I think it's super important to pick the right partner to do that with. When you're looking at groups like us, and there's several out there, conversations are important. Getting to know who you're going to be doing business with long term, you have to feel good and comfortable about it.
We have a unique approach there. We don't really have a sales approach. We don't really have a...
Right. We almost want to talk people out of it.
Yeah, so that's kind of weird, right? Like, are you sure you want to do this?
Right.
You know, you're over at XYZ company and you've had this captive agency for 10 years. Are you sure?
Making a great living.
You're making a good living. Are you sure? Do you know why you wanted? Are you mad at your field rep? I mean, why?
Yeah.
I think that's the question we try to get to. And so, what's our approach? What's different about ours?
Well, I think one of the things is our culture. The fact that you've set that up for us, right? The core values that we have in place. The fact that we preach freedom with our opportunity. Do we want people to be successful? Absolutely. We go into that with every prospect that we bring on, every partner agent. But freedom, understanding that, hey, you're really running that business. When they come from the captive environment, they've got sales leaders, they've got business they can't write and things like that. And so it creates another stress other than just surviving, right?
Robby, what stress points do you talk with agents about as they're thinking about leaving what they've been doing and starting their own agency?
Many of them always talk about carrier access, like what carriers can I get my hands on? The other, we talk about initial investment, which I think is extremely important to have. It's their buy-in, and there's so many different groups out there that charge different amounts to join a group like ours, and that comes up quite a bit. Support, leadership.
What is a common myth that people have coming into the industry that is completely not true?
That I can write whatever piece of business I want to write. So they have this mindset that if I have access to all these carriers, I don't have to say no. I can simply write anybody that comes through my door. And what we do is we actually preach against that. Writing the right business is important.
To your point, it's like, I don't have to say no, but technically, that's true. Technically, you could find a market for just about anything. Now, you're going to go broke.
Doing that,
You're
right?
going to go broke doing that,
Yeah.
right? Because you're going to turn over every rock. There's truth in, yes, you technically can do that, but should you do that? We can do a lot of things, but we shouldn't do some things. That's a really good one in the sense that it's really this myth of grass is greener in terms of I don't have to say no.
Right.
And saying no in a lot of cases is really good for your business.
What has surprised you being in this position, bringing new agents on board?
Probably the cycle, from the initial contact to when they sign the contract. That process has taken longer than, in a lot of cases, than I would expect. We've had some recent agent partners that have joined us, and one of them in particular has had some conversations with some colleagues of his that he's worked with in the past, and the one thing that he keeps saying is, the only thing I would have done different, I would have done it sooner.
And it's justified, right? It's a major decision. You're leaving comfort, and you're doing something something new. You're launching a new business.
There's different cycles of life. When you're young and maybe mid to late 20s and you don't have a family yet, it's a little easier decision making than it is 10, 20 years down the road when you have a family, if you don't have things in line to be able to make that move. Another thing that I actually that just came to mind that I'm surprised that I get a lot is that we do get balked sometimes about our initial investment. For those that don't know, we charge $6,300 to join Integra. And sometimes it's, you should want me because I'm going to be this awesome producer. Part of me wonders why that's hard for some people to accept, that there's a buy-in for a business opportunity. Because a lot of times I feel like $6,300 is actually not that much when you're talking about a business opportunity. Because when you look at franchises and things like that, you're talking about $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 plus. I am surprised that, that kind of comes up more than I would imagine, just because it's, in my opinion, a low number for a business opportunity.
For me, it's when somebody says, well, I don't have $6,300 in the bank. Well, if you don't have $6,300 in the bank, you probably
shouldn't do this.
Shouldn't be starting a business.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to get through that first year to 2 years and eat and pay your mortgage.
That's right.
You're just not ready.
And that's okay.
It's okay to not be ready. We've talked about that before, but we've stressed that, like, it's okay to not be ready. But if you are ready and you are there, sometimes you do have to make that leap. But then we have those candidates that just aren't ready. Maybe you need a couple more years. Maybe you need to stay where you are for a little while longer. I'm really harping on this NIL deal with college sports, right?
Yeah.
And it's just bugging me. It's gotten under my skin. I understand the perspective of coaching salaries over the last 30 years have gone from $100,000 to $5 million. Really crazy numbers of what the coaches are getting paid, and then they're making money off the athletes and all that argument. But we've got high school kids coming out of high school before they've played a down or done anything, because they're a 5-star recruit, because they're in the Rivals top 100 or whatever, that are getting multi-million-dollar NIL deals before they even play in college. It's this idea of, back to the argument of, well, you should want me because I'm going to be this star agent or star producer. Well, it's kind of the same thing to me. It's this culture of pay me, then I'll be good, versus I'll be good and then I'll get paid. And I think there's a little bit of that going on. You kind of have to earn your way. That's
right.
One of our core values is earn your way. I just wonder how much culture is going to impact sort of this idea of recruitment versus skin in the game versus business opportunity, and how all that fits in.
Robby, as you're working with agents talking about coming on board with us, I would love for people to know your idea of success.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I know you can define success in so many different ways. For me, I define success as life balance. I love to spend time with my family. I love to go to the ballpark with the kiddos. That is so important to me. Financially, this industry can be very rewarding if you put the time and effort into it. And I think just the fruits of that, you will notice balanced lifestyles that come with that. So the hard work that you put into your agency, financial success can be there, but that will create that work-life balance that I think many people strive to get.
How do you balance work and life?
You've got to be able to turn work off. So when you're home with the kids or the family and you have sporting events, you have to be able to just shut that clock off and be able to go and just do life without work interfering. Does that mean not working more than 40 hours a week? No. It's just making life a priority, making family a priority. Whether you're working 50, 60 hours a week or not, you just have to make time for it.
If you had an extra hour in your day, how would you spend it?
Studying fantasy football. No, I'm kidding. Working on relationships. Relationships are important to me, and whether it's spending that extra hour with my family or a friend or something else relationship wise, I mean, that's probably what I would do.
So you have a really cool pet.
I do. I almost took a picture of it last night and sent it to you. She was being friendly, so she was letting me pet her. The pet that Tonya's referring to, so my home is slowly morphing into a zoo because of my 12-year-old daughter. So when she was 7, she wanted a chinchilla, and a friend of hers had one, and so she was like, man, I gotta have a chinchilla. So she asked me, Daddy, can I have a chinchilla for my birthday? She was 7 at the time, and I said, babe, I don't think that 7-year-old's an appropriate age for an animal like this. And she said, okay, well, what age is? Well, the clever...
Because she's not going to remember.
She's not going to remember. The clever dad in me just threw out a number several years down the road thinking, okay, she'll forget about this next week. I said, I don't know, 11. Okay. Well, next birthday, 8-year-old birthday. Can't wait till I'm 11. Get that chinchilla. Same conversation every year. And then about 2 months before her 11th birthday, I looked at my wife and I said, we really have to do this. Like all this time, I was thinking we would get by with just her forgetting about it. And now we're actually shopping for a chinchilla. So we drove 3 hours to a chinchilla farm to buy this thing for her.
And the chinchilla's name's Violet.
Violet, yeah. And she's cute. I mean, she's a pretty low maintenance animal. Other than just having to clean up after her, she doesn't make any noises. And Addie's great with her. She really is. She takes her out, lets her run around. Tonya got to meet her last orientation, had a few folks over for dinner. And
the softest thing you've ever,
pretty soft,
right?
Yeah, pretty soft.
So what are you passionate about?
I am passionate about family. I've often actually wondered, for years I've asked myself that question. What do I get excited about? I get excited about relationships. That's kind of what defines me. I've always been a relationship guy. I want to be a great dad. I lost my father when I was 8 years old, and so I grew up without one, and it was important to me when I had kids to really invest in them and really be the best I could be. Even though I didn't have the experience of that relationship growing up, it was kind of the opposite effect. Not for it to be a cliche answer, but that's it for me.
Robbie loves it when I ask him questions. Yeah. It's like his favorite thing in the whole wide world.
I've always told her she's great at it.
Well, you're like the funny, ironic thing about everything with Robbie and what he does here is he's like the most anti-sales salesperson on the planet. That's the irony of everything. And it works, right? I mean, it works. It's really good, and he's really good at what he does. And I'm at this spot where I've been saying that people don't want to be sold. Even to Tanya's frown at times. Sales are dead. The whole sales process. And what I mean by that, no, we have to sell. But what I mean by that is people don't want to be sold any longer.
Right.
They want to research. They want to get information. They want to find out what's a good fit. And then they want to make a buying decision. And some people would say, oh, that's just semantics with sales. But in a way, it's not.
I'm admittedly probably not good at sales, but what I like to do and how I like to work with people is through trust, relationship building, things like that. So when we talk about giving information to prospective agents, that's literally what we're doing. To your point earlier in talking here, almost trying to talk people out of it. And so it's just one of those things where we want people to make an informed decision.
And those are the kind of agents that I think that we have that are the most successful ones, are the ones that actually took the time with us to figure out what do you believe, who you are, and through that process, those are the agents that are relationship sellers. Those are the agents that have long-term success. It's kind of interesting to me looking back over the last several years, the agents that call us and say, hey, I'm ready to come on board, and we have an initial conversation with them. They're like, send me the contract. Those are the agents that haven't really been successful because they're so policy sales driven, where the agents that have taken a longer time within that contracting process are the ones that have been successful long term.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Don't get me wrong, if we could shorten the cycle, it would be wonderful, right? But I would say on that is so true of us. What I hope for the independent agency channel is that is true for other organizations, that they're finding their people, that they're finding their fit. Because the next 10,000 agents that enter the independent agency channel are not likely to pick one specific organization. That's just not realistic. While we would love for the right people to come find us and us to find the right people that are a good fit for us, not every agent is a fit for us and we're not a fit for every agent. But folks coming into the independent agency channel, we need you to come to the channel. We need for the independent agency channel to grow because it is going to have natural attrition through boomer retirement. It's happening. It's going to continue to happen. Mid-size agencies are getting rolled up into large national, international brokerage houses. Distribution points for the independent agency channel have been somewhat shrinking until recently. Groups, which y'all know I'm very obviously bullish on groups and agency networks, are leading the way to replenishing the distribution points for insurance carriers. And we need that. I would say find your fit. That's the most important piece here, is find your fit within the independent agency channel.
Robby, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to work in the front office of the Boston Red Sox. That's what I wanted to do.
I think we can still make that happen.
We can do the front office party. He has the office in the front, doesn't he?
Yes. You have the front office.
Well, I do have a front office.
A front office.
Yeah. I do have a front office, and I have a bunch of Red Sox memorabilia that I could put on my walls. Which I'm afraid to ask Julie, can I do that? Because she decorates the office, and I don't want to take anything down. Silly as it may be, was something that I really wanted to do. I developed a passion for baseball like much later in life. Like Shane grew up playing and played in college, and I did not grow up playing. I actually grew up playing soccer and did martial arts later in life. And
is soccer a sport?
If you're in Europe, then yes.
I know, it's the largest sport in the world. I give it fine.
Football or soccer? No, what are we talking about?
Both. A baseball guy has to take a jab.
Sure. Well, anyway, you say, what's your dream job? That was my dream job. But I grew up in the restaurant industry, right? So I just thought one day I would own my own restaurant because that's what my family did. And then early in life, I realized that ain't going to work for me. The unbalanced lifestyle that comes with that, and me wanting to be a family man, I realized real quick that wasn't going to work.
You have a hospitality degree, right?
I do. I have that, and I have a minor in business.
Yeah.
So that I actually studied owning a restaurant.
Yeah. That was always one of the things that was kind of like, wow, that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Because I can only imagine what a hospitality degree trains you to do, from customer experience, customer interaction. I can imagine that it has a lot of that in it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Love relationships, heavy emphasis on customer service because you're dealing with people, right? The majority of the hospitality industry is restaurants, hotels, theme parks, things like that. And so you're interacting with people on a regular. So you have to have some way of communicating.
So this is a little left field question here, but should the insurance industry be trying to poach folks from the hospitality industry?
Depends on what year we're talking about.
Okay.
10 years ago, 20 years ago, 100%.
Yeah.
Because they were well trained. Like, who wouldn't want to hire someone that worked at Chick-fil-A? Very well trained in hospitality. They end everything with my pleasure. That brings a lot of benefits. You're already bringing someone on that knows how to communicate with people, right? And I don't mean...
We have a new partner that has come on board recently that I swear had to at some point worked at Chick-fil-A because he has my pleasured me 2 or 3 times.
Well, it's a good habit, you know what I'm saying? It's a good thing to end a conversation with, so that's cool.
What book, podcast, video have you seen recently or you're really liking that you'd like to share with our listeners?
So I'm going to be honest, and, I don't like to admit this, but I'm not a book reader. I don't have the patience for it, but I will give a shout out to IA Forward. That's been the only podcast that I've been listening to. So...
He's after a raise.
I mean, other than some of the fantasy football podcasts that I listen to, this has been really the only one.
What's the best compliment that you would give yourself?
I'm attentive. And so if you email me, text me, call me, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to reply very quickly or I'm going to take the call right away.
Which I will brag on Robby for a second. There's a lot of truth to that, especially in the sense he also has the ability to do that. I will have these thoughts, and everybody in our leadership team knows that if I have a thought, they might get a Teams message, they might get an email at a weird hour. But that doesn't mean I expect them to respond to me. That's not like you have to respond to me. But I have had these random thoughts at times and messaged Robby, and he does have this very unique ability to be present with his family, but almost snap and have this conversation and then snap back. And that is pretty rare. I personally struggle with that back and forth. I'm either on and turned on and totally in the moment of what I'm doing, or I'm of whatever that is. And so it's really hard for me to be, I'm always thinking about business and then be present. That's one of the things that I always work on, and Robby has the ability to do that.
And now you've gotten a job promotion as his fantasy football manager.
Fantasy football
consultant
at Integra.
I don't know, man. If any of my friends in my league are listening to this podcast, they're going to ask you why you're asking me about fantasy football.
The good thing is that you move from one place in life of you can become the expert in another place in life very easily among the ignorant. And so that's really where we are today.
So as long as I sound confident,
if you say
you're going to believe everything I say.
If you say it with confidence, we will believe you.
There you go.
That's George Costanza.
So, Robbie, I'm going to let you close us out today with your favorite quote.
Okay, my favorite quote has been on my desktop for 3 years. It's "Comparison is the thief of joy." And I learned that lesson many years ago, and it helps me see that every day. Theodore Roosevelt said it, and it's my favorite quote, and I try to live by it on a regular.
Attitude's a choice. Make a great one.
Bye, y'all.
Ready to get the ball rolling with your independent agency? Learn more at IntegraAgent.com. That's IntegraAgent.com. Thank you for joining us on IA Forward. Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now, or learn more at IAForward.com.